Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatyam vyasam tato jayam udirayat nastaprayasu abhadrasyu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavate uttamasloke bhaktir bhavati naistaki. So we're going to continue reading here from Srimad Bhagavad-Gita. Now we're on chapter 6, which is Sankhya Yoga. And who taught Sankhya Yoga?
Kapila Muni.
Yes, Kapila. And Kapila is also incarnation of Krishna. So today we're going to read slokas 25 and 26. So please listen and repeat. Sanya Sank. I can put my glasses on here. Sanaya Sanyir Upar Ramade Budaya Drita Grihitaya Atma Samshtiham Mana Kritva Na kincharapi chintayet Saneir gradually Sanhai step by step Uparamet hesitated Bhudya by intelligence Driti Grihitya carrying the conviction Atma Samstaham placed in transcendence Manha mind Kritva doing so Na nothing Kinchit anything else Api even Chintayet be thinking of. Translation. Gradually, step by step, with full conviction, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence, and thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone and should think of nothing else. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. By proper conviction and intelligence, one should gradually cease sense activities. This is called pratyahara, the mind being controlled by conviction, meditation, and cessation of senses, should be situated in trance or samadhi. At that time, there is no longer any danger of becoming engaged in the material conception of life. In other words, although one is involved with matter, as long as the material body exists, one should not think about sense gratification. One should think of no pleasure aside from the pleasure of the Supreme Self. This state is easily attained by directly practicing Krishna consciousness. So we're going to read text 26 also. Yato yato nischalati manas chankalam asthitram tatastato nai yam yaitad atmane eva vasam nayet. Somebody else? Yato yato naschalati Mati. Yatha, whatever. Yatha, wherever. Nischalati, verily agitated. Mana, the mind. Chanchalam, flickering. Asthitram, unsteady. Tata, from there. Tata, and thereafter. Niyamya, regulating. Itat, this. Atmani, the self. Eva, certainly. Vasam, control. Nayat, must bring in. Translation. From whatever and wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. Purport. The nature of the mind is flickering and unsteady, but a self-realized yogi has to control the mind. The mind should not control him. One who controls the mind, and therefore the senses as well, is called Goswami or Swami. And one who is controlled by the mind is called Godas, or the servant of the senses. A Goswami knows the standards of sense happiness. In transcendental sense happinesses, the senses are engaged in the service of Rishikesh, or the supreme owner of the senses, Krishna. Serving Krishna with purified senses is called Krishna consciousness. That is the way of bringing the senses under full control. What is more, that is the highest perfection of yogic practice. So, in this material life now, every one of us, we are searching after some form of happiness, but in reality, we don't really know what happiness is. what we are experiencing, the happiness that we experience now in these material bodies, in this material world, is just a hint of real happiness. And what is that real happiness? Real happiness begins and is described by Lord Krishna to Arjuna, what this happiness is. So happiness is something that we feel through our senses. But it's like a dead stone and has no senses. Therefore, a dead stone cannot feel happiness or distress. If we take the different forms of life in this material world, we know there's 8,400,000 different species of life, and to different degrees, the consciousness of these living entities has developed. That's why Prabhupada, he mentioned before a stone. A stone is just a stone. It has no consciousness. And other living entities have more advanced intelligence. So therefore, with that intelligence, they desire different levels of happiness. So if we take a tree as an example, a tree has consciousness, but this consciousness is not really very developed. So if you ask a tree if a tree is happy, in most cases the tree will reply, yes, I'm very happy, I'm a tree. But what does a tree do? A tree stands in the weather, extreme heat, extreme cold. Sometimes it gets water, sometimes it doesn't get water, but it's standing there. But its consciousness is that I'm happy. And we know this because the roots of the tree, what do? They continue to grow deeper and deeper into the soil and attach themselves more and more to this material world. Now suppose if we were asked to stand out in the extreme weather conditions like a tree for just 3 days, so none of us could do it. So we don't have the capacity, and we don't have the body that facilitates the tree and able to do that. So even though the tree is suffering due to its ignorance and must go through these miseries every day, this is how everyone in the material world is existing. So we know that every living entity feels the pleasure of happiness according to what type of consciousness they have developed. And our reward and our consciousness are these bodies. But that happiness is not real happiness. So this morning, if we remember in the Srimad Bhagavatam class, Maharaj says that someone on the streets in San Francisco said, well, why doesn't God make everyone happy? So this is an indication here that we know that there are different levels of happiness. So if I'm an ant, what am I happy with? I'm happy with a little grain of sugar that I can carry away back to my nest and feed others. If I'm a dog, I'm happy with some tidbits of food. If I'm a hog, I'm happy with stool. So the lesser and underdeveloped conscious living entities, they are under the control more of the material nature, mode of passion, mode of ignorance, and therefore they will consistently act in a certain way. So unlike us in this human form of life, so something that makes you happy might not make this person here happy. So as long as our happiness is related to our senses, there's always going to be different standards of happiness. And along with happiness, there's also distress or misery. So we have to suffer. So the lesser species of life, they are more in control by the modes of ignorance, even though they may seem to be very happy. So, for example, if you go to a slaughterhouse, there's one, in fact, they use this method to herd the animals into the slaughterhouse. They get the biggest and most aggressive goat to lead the other goats into the slaughterhouse, and they give them some food, and while you're eating your food, this one here is next to me is being slaughtered. But I still have a smile on my face because I have this food, I'm being happy. And my ignorance is that I don't know that I'm going to be slaughtered next. So the highest standard of happiness is described in this chapter, verse 21, and it says, Sukham atyantikam tad yat buddhi graham antindriyam buddhi grammaya antindriyam. So buddhi means intelligence, and one has to be intelligent if you want to enjoy life. If not, you will enjoy life on the same level as the animals. So as long as our intelligence remains underdeveloped, our standards of enjoyment will not be the same. So I remember once Prabhupada gave the example. He says that an example is a dead man. So a dead man is here lying on the ground, and it has all the facilities of a human: hands, legs, feet, nose, the sense organs, but this dead body cannot enjoy. So why? So we see so many people grieving. There's always funerals. Every day someone is dying, and they're going to the funerals. The families are weeping, and friends are giving eulogies about this person. And when ask them, why are you crying? Why are you, distressed? There he is right here, or she's right here. So what's your concern? Why are you upset? So intelligence means that we understand that that which we love or we were attracted to is no longer gone. And what is that love? It's the spiritual spark. It is us, the soul. So even with a little bit of intelligence, we can understand this. But without this spiritual spark, there's no chance of enjoying anything. So if I were to offer, maybe not to Shruti, but someone else, the most beautiful woman, she's very attractive, and I was to offer one of these ladies the most handsome man, but the only condition is that they are dead. So would you take it? Would you take this beautiful woman? No. Would you take this handsome man? No. Why? Because that spiritual spark, the soul, has left this body, and that body there, it has no other means to enjoy. So the soul is very small. So we know that the size of the soul is 1/10,000th the size of the tip of a hair. So that's very difficult to imagine, taking one hair, dividing it into so many specks and so many specks and so many specks. So to the common person, the soul is invisible. But with mechanical instruments, such as a microscope, if we take a very small, even an atom, and put that under the microscope and enlarge it and enlarge it and enlarge it and enlarge it, then eventually we're able to see this this atom. So the spirit soul is very small, and we cannot measure how small it is. It doesn't mean that that spiritual spark is not there. So if the spiritual spark didn't have senses, how could our body grow? So we know so the body goes through transformations and changes from boyhood to youth, from youth to old age. But what is causing that growth is the soul. Because already we have the dead body, it ceases to grow, and in fact it begins to deteriorate. So the spiritual soul, you and I giving this, and we have senses. That's why we're called sentient beings, because we have senses. But this shows you that if the soul has senses and activity, it is not impersonal. It is not something void or devoid of form, such as that. It has senses. And if it has senses, then in the purport or in the sloka is talking about Rishikesh, the master of the senses. So that's Krishna. So this means that we are people. We have a form. We have senses, and God also has senses, because we are part and parcel of that supreme. So it says, now if I am the Son of God, and I've got a personality, and I've got individuality, so how can you, or can we deny that God also doesn't have an individual existence and also have a personality where there is likes and dislikes? So this is the process of yoga. So yoga means what? Yoga means to yoke or to link oneself with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So if someone is aspiring after spiritual life, they are called yogis. So there are many types of yoga: bhakti-yoga, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, stanga yoga, and then so many different types of yoga. But in all of these yogic practices, they have a different goal than those of us who are entangled in material life. And that goal is that when they're trying to link, who are they trying to link up with? Are they trying to get connected on the Wi-Fi? Or are they trying to link up with their neighbor? No, they're trying to yoke, right? Or link up with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when these yogis are practicing Ashtanga Yoga, sitting in meditation, what are they doing? They're meditating upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead situated within their heart, right? So they're trying to communicate with God through that type of meditation. And Ashtanga Yoga, they have to practice for so many hours a day, Hatha Yoga. And why do they do Hatha Yoga? To stay young and trim and vigorous? No, because they want to be able to sit in meditation for, 10,000 years. And so, you see, I'm staying in the MVT, and all these yoga groups come. And you see, these young or fat or old or stupid people who can hardly do anything, bending over, touching their toes and stretching their arms and stretching their legs, and then they're playing soft music in the background. Yes, setting the mood nice. And so what are they doing? They're actually cheating these people because they're not teaching yoga. So I can remember once, many, many, many years ago, because I was a yogi. I did Ashtanga Yoga. I lived in the jungles in Hawaii, and I would do yoga 20 hours a day. And then coming to Krishna consciousness, then one conversation, Srila Prabhupada says, we don't do Hatha Yoga. And why is that? Who knows? Why don't you do Hatha Yoga? Yes?
It's too difficult to achieve this degree. That path is very troublesome.
Hatha Yoga was, yes, meant for a different yuga. And it coincides with the ability to meditate, and to meditate on the Supreme. But these people who do yoga, including us, we are searching after Ananta. So in this case, Ananta means what? Endless. And we are searching after endless what? Endless pleasure. So endless pleasure can only exist between two entities that are also endless. So when we identify with these material bodies, these bodies are temporary, and therefore any pleasure or happiness that we can derive from these bodies, it is also temporary. It will have a certain amount of time and then it will diminish. But that Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entity, you and I, we are both eternal, and so this Ananta, it means pleasure that is endless, and it can only exist between God and the living entity. So this is why we want to yoke ourselves, yoga, do this and connect with Krishna, so we can have this endless pleasure. Because by nature, we are pleasure-seeking entities. Every one of us is searching after pleasure in some form or another, depending to our likes and dislikes. No one is searching after pain, right? Anyone here searching after pain? But pain will come, right? Pain comes automatically. Last month I broke my arm. I fell down. Now I have a big scar going up my arm, and I have a metal bone, not a bone, but a metal rod in my arm. So I didn't want this pain, but 1 minute I'm laughing and enjoying, and then 1 minute later I'm lying on the ground and I can't move, broken arm, in great amounts of pain. So any of that or activities that are associated with these material bodies, because they are temporary, and Bhagavad-Gita explains to us that there will be happiness and distress, and just like when there's heat and cold, summertime. No, most of you have never been here during the summer, so it's very hot. So you know you've been here summertime, right? So 40 degrees, 43 degrees, very hot, right? But we're suffering like crazy, but because it's Vrindavan, we stay. If this wasn't Vrindavan, I wouldn't stay here in such terrible heat. And soon now it's going to start getting cold. And winters here are not like in Siberia or some places where they have abundances of snow, but it does get very cold here in Vrindavan. So we endure these things, but if we develop our intelligence to be able to understand the complexities of this material world, how is it working, right? So it's a very complex creation. And why is this material creation so complex? It's designed in such a way that it keeps us enamored and keeps us occupied and distracted from our real goal of life, and that is understanding Krishna and enjoying the happiness that can come with a relationship with Krishna. Maybe I told this once before, this story, but how many know Ashtika Muni. Astika Muni, you know? Yeah? Huh? Not personally. You know the story, okay. So, Astika means someone who is bent in 8 places. So, when he walked like this, and he had a walking stick and is walking like this. And so, he came to the king's palace, and the king was holding court and talking with all of his ministers and all of the, princesses and princesses and his queens. And when they saw this funny-looking man walk into the courtyard, they began laughing at him, ridiculing him, laughing. Look at that funny-looking man. And so the king could sense that this was someone intelligent and deserved to be respected. So he made everyone be quiet, and with folded hands he asked, my dear Muni, will you please answer a question for me? And Astika Muni said, before I answer your question, you must come down from the throne and sit here on this cushion, and I will sit on your throne. And so, of course, this is proper etiquette. The king got down and sat on the floor, and Astika Muni went and sat in the king's throne. And he asked the Muni, he says, how come and why is it so difficult to become free from the clutches of Maya? So how many think that Maya has a tight grip around our neck and won't let go? Is Maya holding you tightly and won't let you free? Yes? Yes? You think? So when the king asked this question, Astika Muni got up from the throne and he hobbled into the courtyard where there was a tree. And he jumped up on the tree and he wrapped his legs around the tree and his arms around the tree, and he was holding on very tightly, so tightly, and he was saying, let go of me, let go of me. And so the king could immediately understand that Maya doesn't have her grip upon our neck, holding us here. We are holding on to Maya. And how? Because her illusionary energy is very, very, very clever. Right? That's her job. Right? What's her job? So her job is to keep us here in this material world. So, she has a list, so, okay, there's how many billions of living entities in this material world, and how many are in human form of life. So only in this human form of life can we escape and go back to Godhead. But other than that, every living entity is in the grips of Maya. And sometimes someone becomes intelligent and they understand how Maya works, and they take heed to the instructions like Arjuna is being given here in the Bhagavad-Gita, and they get free from the material energy, and Maya loses her control of that living entity. So at that time she has to go into her book and then take her marking pencil and scratch out your name. Oh, well, this one got away. But most of the time it doesn't happen, and we continue to come again and again and again and again into this material world. So we must train ourselves, and this is done by controlling the senses, learning how to control the senses, and controlling the mind, right? And what do you control the mind and the senses with? Intelligence. That's right. There's three levels. There's the gross physical body, which consists of the senses, and then there's the mind, and then there's the intelligence. So Bhagavad-Gita says, if you contemplate the objects of the senses, then you're going to be in big trouble. So the mind or the senses are seeing something nice, maybe some palatable foods or some alcohol or something which is not good for you, but it wants it. So it gives impulses to the mind. Hey, look at this. Look at that big cake there. Yeah, you could eat all that cake if you want. And then what happens? The intelligence says, no, don't eat all that cake. If you eat all that cake, you'll get sugar diabetes. You'll become fat. You don't want to eat that. You don't want to become fat. You don't want to get sick. And so the mind should listen to the intelligence and then give directives to the senses, and in this way you control. But if the lower self controls the higher self, then life will be very complex and will remain in the illusionary clutches of Maya, or this material energy. So we should know that the mind is always going to be disturbed in some way or another. Peaceful for a moment, just like if you're lying in your bed, oh, I feel very nice, I'm ready to sleep, oh yes, everything is going so nicely. And then suddenly, what do you hear? One little tiny mosquito flying around your ear, so you can't sleep now, and then you get disturbed and you get agitated, and oh, that damn mosquito, what am I going to do? You get up, you turn on the light, you look around your room, where's that mosquito? I'm going to get that mosquito. So what are these? What causes this distress? The mind, Adhyatmic, Adhibautik, Adhidaivik, right? So the demigods, summer times are extremely hot, winter times are cold. Now they're having, in different parts of the world, the biggest tornadoes and the biggest hurricanes in the history of man. So the demigods are causing us misery and distress, making the mind disturbed. And then maybe other living entities like the mosquito, or maybe you have a noisy neighbor, right? These things are giving us distress and disturb. And then all of these things in the combination of our own mind, right? Our mind is disturbed because it's hankering. And we're going to continue to hanker. And we're hankering in reality for that relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So if we learn that and we concentrate and focus our mind on this, then our life will become sublime. So you must learn to accept things that are favorable, to accomplish this, and anything that is unfavorable, you must reject this and disengage yourself from these activities that are binding us here and keeping us in this material world. So Prabhupada is asked, how long does it take to become Krishna conscious? And what is his answer? 1 second. That's right. So we can see from personalities in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Who is that person who was given a benediction that he could find out how long he will live? Huh? Yes. And what did he do? He was given 1 second more, you'll live. So what did he do? He surrendered to Krishna. So if you were told, oh, you go to the doctor, you have some illness, cancer or something, you have 6 months left to live. And so, oh, what am I going to do? So you go to your family and your children and, oh, grandma, oh, you get all these, and no. So we're not afforded that privilege, because death is imminent. Death is here for one of us walking out of this room tonight. Right, so are you ready? So if you want to know why are you here in Krishna consciousness, what is the purpose of being here in Krishna consciousness? Who has an answer? How about you, Mataji?
Back home, back to God.
Well, that's a generalization.
That's it. You must know.
We're here to learn how to die. You understand? Right? Because what does Krishna say in Bhagavad-Gita? Always think of me. Become my devotee. But if our mind is distracted because of the senses to the sense objects, what will we be thinking of? We'll be thinking of this microphone. And we won't be thinking of Krishna. And if death comes, then we lose. And then Maya in her book can say, one more lifetime. Unsuccessful. So learn how to die, right? And that means training your mind, focusing, patram pushpam. Everything you do it for Krishna, right? So let's work hard on becoming Krishna conscious. What does that mean, Krishna conscious? You're conscious of Krishna 24/7, right? Even when you're sleeping, right? So if you're really sleeping, how many of you have been sleeping and wake up and you're chanting Hare Krishna? Yeah, me too. I've done that many times, sleeping. And sometimes wake myself up because I'm chanting in my sleep. So we'll stop here if anyone has a question or something, comment or something. So this means, oh yes, you have a question? Okay.
Many times we are hearing from the seniors, from the well-wishers, we must always thinking positive. We got from our advice, from our seniors, from our well-wishers. But in our Krishna consciousness, mostly we are, as we discuss now, we are learning how to die. We are not learning how to live.
But you know the Vaishnava song that Vaishnavas live to die. And the death of a Vaishnava is a glorious thing. Why is it glorious? You're very sad. My grandpa died. Oh, boo, 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 boo. But when a Vaishnava dies, we celebrate with a feast. Why? Because what happens to that Vaishnava? They go back home to Godhead. They leave this material world. Of course, sadness and separation is there, just like with Srila Prabhupada, bringing tears in my heart constantly. But he has given the venue in which I can save myself, by following the instructions given. So the different levels of, what's the difference between a Kanishta Adhikari and an Uttama Adhikari? The Uttama Adhikari has fully surrendered. The Kanishta Adhikari is still being manipulated by the senses, right? The desire to enjoy in this material world. But we know from the Bhagavad-Gita, there's no enjoyment here in this material world, right? There is no enjoyment. What seems like enjoyment is in reality an illusion. Just like the tree, I give the example of the tree. The tree is standing there stalwartly for 5,000 years and thinking, oh, this is such a nice place, I'm having a good time, oh yes. And what about Indra? Right, Indra was the king of heaven, or is the king of heaven. The most opulent, more opulent than almost every other demigod. And he was cursed. And he was cursed to become a pig. And so he was immediately cast from his opulent palace, his beautiful wives and princesses and children, and thrown into the muck and stool of the gutters, like you see here in Vrindavan. And he would lay there with his snout sticking out of the dirty water and making these noises and becoming aroused by seeing his she-pig, right? And he's in pig heaven, enjoying like crazy. I'm so happy. And the demigods were in conflict with the demons, and they needed his military expertise. So they came down from the upper planetary systems here to bring Indra back to lead them in fighting against these asuras. And what did Indra say? He says, how can I leave this? Look at me. I'm having such a good time, man. And he was laying in stool, his body was filthy, and some big she-pig is making noises at him, and he's got 500 little baby pigs hanging around and then waiting for some stool to come floating down so he can snatch it up and eat it. But he's thinking, I'm having a good time, And that's hog heaven. You see? And so this is our mentality in this material world. So let's get out and go back home to Godhead. Okay? Hare Krishna. Yeah. Yes.
This 26th verse seems like something we should have on the mirror so that you can always remember it, that from whenever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and pull it back under the control of the self. It's kind of like that horse, isn't it? If you're riding the horse. When I was a child, my friend they had a ranch out in the country. He says, get on this one horse. And I was trying to pull this horse all over it. It finally bucked me off. And his sister said, what horses did you ride? And she says, oh, that was a wild horse that was captured in the wilds yesterday. And my friend was laughing. So in the beginning, the horse might be wild, but by the constant practice and determination that they can,
That's
the horse
right.
and the mind can be trained
Yes.
to go in the right direction. So in the beginning, it might take more pulling than withdrawing,
Yes.
but we still have to do it.
And that's done with the intelligence.
Yeah,
Yes. So,
remember where to pull it and where not to pull it.
yes.
I like this in the first part of the first verse where Prabhupada says by proper conviction. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean like conviction to a prison or a mental hospital.
Yes.
It means convicted
Convinced.
to certain prison.
Yes. Yes. Okay, so Hare Krishna.